Hi, I'm James Stewart, Book Promotion Specialist at FriesenPress. I'm sitting with Lieutenant Colonel Chris Linford, who wrote Weerasinghe with us. Just wanted to ask you, first off, Chris, what's your military background?
I'm a what's called a Health Services Operations Officer, and as well as far as military deployments, I served in 1991 in the Persian Gulf War with one Canadian field hospital, in 1994 in Rwanda on Operation Passage, and from 2009 to 2010 I served in Afghanistan at the Role 3 Combat Hospital in Kandahar. It's just like, it was like being on a different planet. Yeah. You know, like everything that we thought was right, they thought was wrong. So it's very hard to, to come from a first world country to go to a very much a third world country and not be an arrogant idiot is the first challenge. You know, you're not there to save the world. You're not there to change them. You can't. 19 years ago, after my deployment to Rwanda, I became quite injured and ill with post-traumatic stress disorder. Been managing it fairly well over the last several years before my tour in Afghanistan. I started to lose my ability to sleep at night, even losing, starting with losing an hour, and then it went to 2 hours, and then 4 hours. And then I was lucky to get a couple of hours sleep. My short-term memory was shot, which is pretty critical when you're in a war zone, that you can remember stuff, especially working in a combat hospital. What it does is it just starts to rewire your brain. You start to think in a different way, you start to respond in a different way to various stimuli. And I think through that I started to notice it happening a little bit, and then it started to happen a lot. I met a psychologist who asked me about writing a book and if I'd considered it. And he said something to me that really resonated. He said, "This book isn't about you, Chris, it's about who you can help." And that really hit me right in the center of my heart, and I knew that I had to do this. It really strikes me that there are veterans that are older, that are previous generations, as far back as the Second World War, that have suffered through their whole life with PTSD and not knowing that they should be talking about it. They were always told that they should not talk about it. For instance, I have a few triggers, like really sharp, loud noises will trigger me and make me very uncomfortable. If I smell blood or see raw flesh, I get triggered. But what I learned through my healing process is that just coping with it isn't good enough.
Right.
You have to be able to live. And if you're constantly just coping, you're not living. And what happens is that overflows into the rest of your life. The response to the book has been incredible. I get people that email me or contact me through my website on a daily basis, usually anywhere between 4 and 6 a day, that are telling me what their experience is as they're reading my book. I tell you, it's just an incredible experience to hear from people that I do not know how this book is resonating with them, and for me, that's a huge win. Self-publishing became almost my only way to get my book published, frankly. I tried the traditional route of finding a literary agent, and then they would hopefully find me a publisher. I came up against some significant barriers there, whether it was a literary agent that didn't carry my style of story or didn't like my topic or whatever, a plethora of reasons to say no. Very frustrating, because I knew my topic was important. I knew there was a thirst for it in the country. I learned about, believe it or not, I learned about self-publishing through Kevin Newman, who used to be the anchor for Global, and he said, "Have you ever thought about self-publishing?" And I thought, well, I'm kind of saving that for my last choice if things don't work out. Well, he said, not a good idea. He said, let me get you in touch with somebody who's done this. And it was a guy who had been down the traditional route of publishing and had transitioned to self-publishing because of more control of his product, the ownership of his intellectual property, better royalty payments and that sort of thing, a little more flexibility. I liked the sound of all that. So I eventually found FriesenPress, and I went through a couple of others, interviews, and frankly, FriesenPress offered the best. My final message would be, go and talk to somebody about it. That is really what this is about. If they tell you no, you're okay, you're a little anxious or you got a funny little personality or whatever, then get on with it. But if you have something like PTSD going on, now is the time to get it corrected. Vice waiting decades like I did. That's not the way to do it. So this is about hope. You're not alone. There's lots of us out there with this. And just, it seems just learning that you're not alone with it makes it just a little bit easier to come forward.
Thanks, Chris. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us out here.